Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our site. I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Andrea Loprieno. I'm the director of the area. I'd like to say welcome to our colleagues, our friends who came to share us that we made it actually since we started the work of the research center in Kurna. We decided to do that kind of meeting, lectures for all the missions who's working in Luxor to just give our colleagues just an idea about the work on the site. Before that time, when we just asked anybody about the work of those missions, no many people understand or at least know the names of the mission itself. So since we started our work, now we can tell you that we have a good idea about all the missions that we're working in this area in the West Bank of Luxor. And also, that kind of lectures or meetings, it's not just for our friends and our colleagues, for everybody who's coming to share us from outside of the area itself. I think that kind of lectures will give us an idea about the work on the site itself.
Refreshments, I think. I'm sorry about that. Maybe
Means that we are waiting for lunch. It's not just will be a kind of lectures or meeting for the Egyptologists. We are announcing it everywhere, not just in Facebook or in our media. We are just inviting everybody from outside of the area, from outside of the area of Kurna, to just come and share us, to participate in the work in Luxor and sharing all the work here and understanding the idea of the work on the West Bank of Luxor. And today we are so happy, really, because when we talk with, I'm not just introducing one of the missions in Luxor, just one of the missions. We are so happy to have two missions. I think that Ms. Elena is just was sitting behind. She's we say just welcome. You're welcome here. And Dr. Andrea actually when she started the work here at the beginning of the 1990s with the German archaeological work, and then this West mission, and then the University of Basel was working on the area of the nobles, as we call it, the Sheikhatri Kurna, especially on the tombs, 95 and 84. I think that the work that mission is doing is just not just a normal work. We have a great work is happening in that area, and I'd like to invite her to give us an idea about the work, what she did over the last 10 years on the site itself. Thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Thank you very much for the kind invitation and also for the opportunity to present our work in Kurna and Sheikhatri Kurna. I will start with a short overview of the history of the project, and then we go on and I will present some of the works that have taken place in Sheikhatri Kurna during the last 2 seasons. Problem now? I'm sorry. We see here the cluster of tools in which we currently work. It's a cluster of of 6 rock cut tombs on the south and east coast of Williams Island of Sheikhatri. All these tombs are interrelated with each other in one way or another. Some of these interrelations will be discussed during the talk. Most of these tombs have been built during the middle 18th dynasty, except for 2 tombs, and these are K85 and K90. These are corridor tombs, probably constructed during the Middle Kingdom. But all the others go back to the time of the middle 18th dynasty, the end of reign of Thutmose III and the reign of Amenhotep II. Work started in tomb TT95, the tomb of the high priest of Mary, and TT84, the tomb of Yahweh, first speaker of the king and overseer of the granaries in the 90s. And this work was started on behalf of the German Archaeological Institute in Cairo. And at that time, work permission was requested and granted by the permanent committee for both tombs at the same time, because it was known already through previous epigraphic work in these tombs that the tomb owner of TT95 at the time also required TT84 as his own. So this is known due to inscriptions in the tomb of 84. So we thought it would be good to go into this issue and find out how it was came about. At the time when we started in the 90s, this was Elina and I as field directors, Elina in TT84, I worked in TT95. The principal focus was on the recording of the wall paintings, but we also carried out some excavations in the forecourts and in substructures linked to these 2 temples. Here we have some insight into TT95, what we call TT95A. Now, in the meantime, the tomb chapel. It's indeed an ambitious monumental tomb chapel consisting of a vast forecourt, as you can see here in the plan to the right. It is supported, the first entrance hall is supported by 12 pillars, and the entrance hall has very high ceilings, and you enter then from there a second hall with 4 pillars, but this room has been left unfinished. And at the beginning of our work in the 90s, we very much focused on the wall paintings. We started to clean the wall paintings. This was necessary because they were very much used and also dirtied by fire and by opening the ceiling, so sediments came down with rainfall, and one part of the east wall was very much covered with sedimented dirt, and on the other side of the entrance hall we had the use of fire during the time that the tomb was used as a house by modern inhabitants. And the tomb was used by modern inhabitants from the end of the 19th century into the 20th century, but then before 1913 the door was installed, and so nobody used the tomb anymore as a living place. We started to do restoration work at that time together with Mohammed Etai, who was very experienced in working on the paintings of the Temple of Seti in Burma, and he worked with us for several seasons. And when the 2 paintings were cleaned, we went over to calc the tomb scenes and representations on semi-transparent foil. We see that on the right side. Now we are going to process these pencil drawings in Illustrator. So that gives us the opportunity to really document all the different layers and also to make them visible in layers later on when we are interested to see, for instance, how do the preliminary drawings look, or where did they do the contour lines. All these different things can be asked by using these Illustrator data files. At the same time, we started to excavate a substructure close by that we call now 95B. The tomb was called a tomb by Friederike Kram. She gave it the number 92. So whenever you see a K in front of a number, this is in reference to the publication by Friederike Kram. At that time, when she did her survey, she thought it was a tomb of the Renaissance period, but luckily enough, it turned out through our excavations that it's directly linked to the tomb chapel of the High Priestess, Mary. And so it's linked to the first two slaves of the tomb. The burial chamber is here, a picture here showing Elena and another colleague from Göttingen in action. Was heavily looted, like most of the places in Sheikhatri. I mean, these places were easily accessible. You see, it was accessible through a staircase, a descending corridor to the left to have a picture. But it still had to be made of the funeral equipment that was deposited there. And so bits and pieces point to a elite burial assemblage that was outfitted by state depots and workshops. For instance, we found, among other things, this stopper of an amphora with a stamp showing the name and epithet of Amun-Ra from Karnak. So it means the product that was carried to the tomb has been sealed in Karnak and has been sent from the magazines there. So it's important, an important issue. That means that the assemblage was provided from royal sources in a certain way. We even could identify one of the burials in the main chamber. You see where the main chamber lies on the plan to the right. It contained, all in all, 4 individuals. One we could identify, and this was the mummy of a woman. It was a burial, not the mummy. I mean, we only have bits and pieces out of the bones, and it was not very well preserved, but it was a female burial, and we could identify her according to painted polychrome pottery imitating stone vessels. And these vessels show part of the title and the name, and you see here clearly written Bunai to the left in the photo of the section of the inscription, and the title was Menat Ensur Royal Nurse. So, and this person also figures in the 2 depictions in 95. She was the mother of the high priest of Mary, and she was buried in that chamber. That was a very nice result. So at the same time, when we cleaned the inner halls of the tomb chapel 95A, we also came upon a shaft tomb that we see also indicated here with that red arrow. And we were able to retrieve from this shaft parts of a mummy you see to the left that still wore a wooden toe prosthesis on the right foot. The photo to the right. And maybe some of you have seen that prosthesis before it was sent to Cairo. It's now in the Cairo Museum. It has been studied by the anthropologist from Munich who worked at that time with us in the mission. And so it was still attached to the foot. It was wrapped with a strap, a rope strap around the foot, and very nicely carved. And since it shows wear on the back side of the big toe, we can tell that the prosthesis was worn by the lady to whom it belonged already during her lifetime. Otherwise, you would not see traces of wearing. So that's also interesting. Due to the anthropological and paleopathological examinations, we know that the lady had been about 15 to 16 years old when she died, and that she must have suffered from arteriosclerosis, which finally led to the loss of the member, the big toe, or even to an amputation. So anyway, she had this nice prosthesis also to make it able for her to walk without being much affected. And there has a study been done by Finch on processes, food and geoprocesses of ancient Egypt, and she made a replica of the toe of these processes, and she found programs to wear it, and so she tested the usability of the processes, and it seems to really be helpful in helping you to have to walk correctly. Now we go over to TT84. You see the plan of it to the right. TT84 is an accurately designed T-shaped tomb. It has on each side of the entrance hall a chapel in the west, and then a long corridor that leads into a central vaulted room. Another chapel is made a niche at the rear side, at the rear wall, very probably to contain a statuary of the two owners. The tomb was built for Yamunetech, as I said before, and his wife, and later it was reused later by Mary and his mother. Also here, when Elina started work in '84, they very much focused on the wall painting, so they cleaned in a dry cleaning treatment, they cleaned the wall paintings with pressure gums, and then further on they altered all the two paintings. So this is all recorded, and after recording, they consolidated all the breaks in the wall paintings by applying Unilever plaster and filling in these gaps and breaks. There is another tomb very closely related to TT84. As you can see, it's on a higher level, just above the tomb, the facade and the forecourt of TT84. This was a tomb that was not known before Elina worked in Sheikhatri. When she excavated the forecourt in '84, and then later on she moved up on top of the facade to find out if there is any substructure connected with '84. You know that sometimes also tombs in Sheikhatri have a pyramid on top that also existed already during the 18th dynasty, not only during the Renaissance period, as you see in Ragunaga or in Medina. So she cleared it, and happily enough, when they excavated the forecourt of K453, they came upon a slide of the retaining wall that has been built on top of this facade of K453, and on the basis of the stamped codes intermingled with the remains of this stone wall, Elina could identify the owner, and it turned out to be again Yamunetech. So she found out that the tomb was built for Yamunetech at an earlier stage than TT84. And the earlier stage was related to a certain stage of his career. At that time, he seems to have been only a voice speaker and not a first voice speaker. And so we might conclude that when the building block of TT84 was assigned to him, he had already moved up his career ladder, and he had already taken over the position of the first voice speaker and the overseer of granary. So he was allowed to build on the prime location at that time, and that's the prime location of TT84, and then further to the north, TT85, the famous tomb of Amenhotep, and the royal Mesbaki. What happened was that they obviously integrated this unfinished tomb K453. You have a look now here on the bottom to the left into the entrance hall. It was integrated into a terraced tomb complex consisting of 453 and TT84, which was framed by large enclosure walls to the right and the left of both tombs. And also, we have indications of the present state that the entrance hall was at least fully plastered. It was fully, the architecture of the entrance hall was part of the ceiling, had already been decorated. So some, in one way or in the other, maybe festivities that take place during the group cemetery feast. Then 84 is really complicated. 84 is still connected with another tomb that takes part now of the cluster we are working in, and this is K90. You see that here also in the map. In the plan, K90 is a corridor tomb, an unfinished corridor tomb, probably again from the Middle Kingdom. And what happened was when the stonecutters who were sent to build a deep shaft into the courtyard, into the northeast corner of the forecourt of TT84, they broke into an unfinished room of the K90 tomb. You see that in that red circle, you see the shaft and then a chamber below, and that's part of the construction of the corridor tomb, and then further up there is the burial chamber connected to the shaft. So we also have this kind of interrelation between K90, 84, and K453. So it also nicely shows how important it is not only to focus on one tomb is known because it has nice decoration, but also to clear all the area around it and to see how the cemetery looked like and how it was used. So it tells us many, many interesting stories. The tomb has been almost completely cleared, and we think that it happened during the time when Robert Mont and Walter Emery worked did some excavations in 97, TT97, the tomb of the High Priest of Amon was already published in an early report by them published, and it's integrated in their plan of the tomb. So we think we also clearly, but they never said anything about things they found inside. Now we come to the second phase of our project in Sheikhatri. That the second phase started in the middle of the year 2000. Archaeological was resumed then again in TT95 because it turned out that we did not have finished all we would have liked to finish. For instance, there was a big substructure to the south of the courtyard of the chapel of 95. You see it indicated with these arrows. We call this substructure now 95C, and we thought we should clarify what the meaning was of this substructure, and our idea was, by the way, that it might also be related to the Tomb of Mary. And also we had to focus again on finds and pottery of the later periods, not only the period when the tombs were built, like the 18th dynasty, but also phases of reuse. And that means first millennium BC through the centuries, but also the Middle Ages when Coptic monks lived in these tombs, and even when Gonawi people moved up into the tomb to their living there. And we know that it has been related to the visitors, to the tourism, the early tourism who came up to see the tomb of Senesa, TT96. So they were very close and they sold things to them, and they did some kind of imitations of ancient things that we also found there when we excavated inside halls of 95. The substructure 95C, labeled number 93 by Frederick Camp, is a huge complex consisting of an open courtyard, then of a stepped descending corridor that was left unfinished. We see at the end that it ends in a gallery, so it never received a chamber at the time it was constructed. During the first millennium BC, they added shaft tomb. One of the arrows point to that. 2 side chambers. You see also running from the front of the corridors here, and then 2 one-room rooms that have been built into the south wall of the courtyard. You see to the left. So, although it was really heavily wrought, easily accessible for long periods, so of course we could not find a lot of archaeological evidence concerning burials, but still we got some nice evidence of a New Kingdom burial, remains of an 18th dynasty to early Renaissance period. are still in the process of analyzing it and studying it. But that burial has probably been deposited in the huge gallery, the end part of the Soviet passage. And we were lucky enough to find certain fragments and items that tell us something about the person buried there, one of the persons buried there during the New Kingdom, and this was a songstress of Amun by the name of Isis. Her mummy was wrapped with these nicely painted polychrome mummy straps, going down the mummy here, like on the coffins. You see the same model feature with the root spell, and then two side straps here, Imari here, and then her name. So that was the final straps that were wrapped around the mummy before she was put in her coffin. So we are still working on these finds. They are now deposited in the Carter magazine, where we also frequently work, and we will take up continuous work there again from fall 2016. Also, we will try now to do scientific analysis, that means archaeometric analysis of pigments, we would like to identify wood, and so on. So there is a new approach to it since we started working on it. Another example of the finds that we studied a lot during the second phase of our project earlier in the 2000s. Here, two examples of cartonages from cartonage coffins that have been found in a burial chamber that was originally built for 18th dynasty burials. At the time, the chapel was built, but then it was reused by people from the Lydian period, and they must also have been part of the elite, because they had cut these one chamber tombs here in the site of the courtyard of structure 95C. You see that, numbered by Sridhar become K308, and this group K308, very nicely cut. It had also plaster, but it was reused a long time, so we did not find any decoration, anything of that kind. It had two shafts and one shaft, but one quite deep shaft of 6-7 meters, broke into this 18th dynasty burial chamber, and they used it. It was a dual chamber, and they used it. And so we found these cartonages in pieces and fragments, and so it took really a couple of seasons to get them reassembled and studied, and that has been done by Stefan Fricker, whom some of you might know. He also works with the German Institute in Ramanaga, Islamic Culture, and he has worked with Laurent Babet, and he is still going on also working with us. Another big issue of that period of our project was restoration work in TT95. So we went on with consolidating treatments of the two walls, and that was during the years 2012-13. Here you see Venezuela Ali Mahmoud Mohammed applying an injection of fixative to fragile rock parts, and then on the right side you see a big crack after closing it first with this black-shoe technique. And it's nice to compare the modern technique with the ancient technique. So we do it just the same nowadays, and it's very useful, very effective. And then they covered it with a plaster layer of Kiva plaster to make it look nice. But we really took care that we did not left a little step between the edges of the ancient plaster and the new plaster to see where it stops, just to not unclarify it. Then a year later, a team from the Benjamin Safia Conservation School to work with us. They have a long experience working in Sheikhatri. They are still working with Laurent Babet in TT96, they have worked in TT29, just the same corner. So we came into touch with each other, and then they said they could also help us to go on with cleaning. And when they came to spend the season in 2014 with us, they did the dry cleaning with we sharpened again, and then we did only dry cleaning, and you see already the difference between the two ceiling sections here and the upper part of the slide. And then also we continued securing, consolidating wall paintings on the ceilings. Now we come to the last phase in which we are right now. So the phase of the Swiss mission at Sheikhatri. It's now not a German mission anymore. At the time when we came back in the 2000s, it was a joint venture between the German Institute and the University of Basel. Now it's only University of Basel. By the courtesy of the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, we were able to, and of course in accordance with the German Archaeological Institute, we were able to transmit the concession of the tombs solely to the University of Basel, and that's what it is now. We are very much indebted to the permanent committee and also to all the directors and all members of the local branches of the SEA here, that they made it possible that we went on with our work and that we can really process very smoothly and very efficiently. So we are also grateful to our cooperation partners from other Swiss universities. Therefore we call it also Swiss Mission, because it's not only University of Basel, it's also University of Zurich with a team of anthropologists, the same team that works with Elina and Susanne in the Valley of the Kings. And we have two teams from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, and this is a team represented now by Rachel, here a team of geologists and a team of geodesists, surveyors. They do geodetic measuring, and they have joined us since 2015. And of course, nothing could go without our race up to Middlesmark and the workmen from Courtyard. So we also rely very much on the team. We have another look on the tombs, the cluster again. Most recently, K555 and K85 could be included. We had applied for it, and the permission was granted to go on with it. So you see the tombs, one on top of 95A. The other you can't see now because it's still completely covered by a huge amount of debris, cone. I will tell about the story, how it came about that we applied for it, because Elina Kruth had found the entrance to it in a break in the wall of TT84 at the time when she worked in TT84, and so she did a short documentation and reporting, and it was published in the fifth. So we have a look now. This is interesting for the archaeology of Sheikhatri at a very early stage. You can't see so well on the photo, but it's clear that the debris here, you see that there's a photo from 2014 done by Marta Statistics, and then we have a photo published by Guardian and Weiger with their topographical catalog of the private tombs that was published 1913. So you see that the cone of debris looks already the same. So it has been produced by early excavators. It might also have been partly produced by two stone cutters, ancient stone cutters above this area, which might also maybe produced by looters. But somehow we are now in the process of remove these debris, and we hope also to find information on the production of the debris, who brought it there, not only to uncover the tomb below, but also to find out about these procedures. So now you get a look into it, how it looks today. Also the entrance is hole unfortunately, in one of the stele walls of tomb TT84. According to Elina's article, and now since we have come back, we know that the tomb belonged to a overseer of royal another famous royal nurse by the name of Baki, who received a royal burial. This is all described in the depictions of the paintings in TT85. So we don't know if this is the same person, or maybe it's just a namesake. Maybe the name Baki was just a very popular one. Like we always have these faces, the names are most popular. Okay, then you see here, have a look into the entrance hall, and into the doorway, into the passage. And I'd just like to point out the opening in the ceiling indicated by the arrow. So what happens is that debris from above the tomb slides came down through this crack, through this roof opening, into the tomb. And then you see these heaps of debris inside. And it was heavily looted, but the tomb robbers did not go too close to them because they were afraid if they take it, there might come more debris and maybe even part of the ceiling. So we recommended when after we entered the tomb to take away the debris cone in order to remove the weight. I mean, it's tons and tons of debris on top of it, to remove it and to clarify the situation and also to protect the tomb from further damage. And it has suffered quite a lot, also by ancient villagers. And the forecourt still completely covered with debris. So we'll see what we find there. So a picture of our endeavors now that have just started a week or so ago. Will take some time, but we are in good hope that we finally managed to remove it. And then we moved to K84, the tomb above TT95. And also there we have started now to clean the courtyard and reopen the tomb that has been used in the 1990s by the guardians of this part of the necropolis. They use it as a shelter to sleep there overnight. We already found out, due to our measures that died upper hours and chapter was took, that the corridor of the tomb K85 lies directly in line, corresponds with the passage, the central passageway of TT95. And there is not so much rock in between, bedrock. So it was not such a great idea for the builders of TT95 to build it directly underneath the corridor, but at the time they did not have another chance. Before work started in TT95, they had to build the substructure TT95B first. It seems that Hunai, the mother, had died and she needed a place to be buried, so they started with excavating this substructure first and then moved on to build the chapel, but then they could not go according to the original plan. But in the photo here, up in the middle of the facade, you see a niche, and that indicated the planned entrance into the tomb, where they stacked out the building plot. But then they had to move to the south, so they built the chapel, the central axis below K84-5, and this is an earlier tomb, and very close already to the entrance hall of 96, and almost they would have broken into the entrance hall of 96, so they really had to be very careful. Excavations going on, also with the kind supervision of Inspector Hosni and Mahmoud, who is also part of our team, Mahmoud Khalil, and we are very thankful for all your help during this in the last season. Now, I just briefly give you a summary of the research issues that we follow in our project. So we are very much concerned with life histories of these tombs. So we want to know everything concerning their whole lifetime, not only the time when they were built, but also when they were reused over the centuries and even millennia for different purposes. So, and one important aspect of it is the landscape. Also, the idea came out to include a geological team, and they have started now with a survey with up the corner, and also in particular analysis of the geological stratification, geological structures, cracks, faults, etc., to see if they have an impact on on their durability. So one important aspect of their work is also to go behind causes of structural damages. Then we focus very much on the building period, of course. Most of the tombs that we are concerned with are unfinished, so they are an open book in terms of cutting procedures, building procedures, tool traces they leave, because when a tomb is painted or it shows relief, then you don't see how they went forth. So it's very nice to work in unfinished tombs, actually. We are glad also that K555 is an unfinished tomb. Then we are interested in the tombs as shelters for the dead. That's the regular way. Usually you look into that when you work in hidden tombs. We ask the questions, who were the ones who built it? Who were those who commanded it? Yeah, were these private people? Were these the king? It's still an open question. And by whom were they finally used? Only for one elite member, or probably for their family? Part of answers we have found out already. Then we will also very much focus on microanalytic examinations of the production and manufacturing of things, like trace goods and also utility items. So this is also a strong focus in our project. And then again, the final phase of occupation, the tombs as shelter for the living. As I mentioned before, during the period when Coptic monks lived there, we also would like to learn more about their being there. So far, a lot of Ostraka has been studied from the Coptic period, but archaeological evidence to go together with the written evidence is rare, so we go on studying this, and we also hope to find new evidence. And then even the modern occupation is interesting. In the modern occupation, and also the use of the tools in order to get maybe things to sell to people and to do that. I quit that now because maybe we run out of time. So, but what I would like to show you now is some certain technological methods that we apply now since last year, and that really help us to follow up the questions we ask. One is, as I already mentioned, landscape issues. So here you see the reproduction of a 3D model that has been generated last year by the Geodetic Institute of the ETH in Zurich. It's a digital terrain elevation model. The contour lines, the big ones, they show you 5-meter intervals, and the small ones 1-meter intervals. And by looking at this model, you see in which elevation which tomb was constructed. And it might also tell the geologists later, I mean, when they get the stratification in accordance with the elevation, that will also be useful for them to go on with their analysis. So we see that 95A and B were on a lower level like 96, 95C already higher up, K84 on the same level as TT84, and as well as 94, the tomb of Famosa. And then we have on a higher level K453. So 3D laser scans are also very helpful in getting very exact geometric models of tomb architecture and also of geological structures. As you can see here, I showed you a model now of TT95 again that has been produced also last year. It also shows that you can set the ceiling then in that model, and we have done this on the right side. On the left, the ceiling is closed, and you see also the geological tracks running through it. So you see also how the tomb was affected. The back part, the second inner wall, you see how unfinished it was, and of course when you open it on the computer in the software, you can move around with it. So it's really very helpful for different kinds of questions we ask. And here to the right you see David Steinman, he was a member of our mission this time, taking scans with a infrared scanner in one of the shafts of the medium period. Now, some words on the geological analysis that takes place machine, and it's carried out by Martin Zieger and Rachel Holloway. So they have started to do a survey, and they have continued this season, and they went, they tried to find out about the geological certification of the hill site and in which beddings the tombs have been cut, especially the tombs in which we were. They were also behind discontinuities, cracks and faults, and they tried to produce a map of them. So that might also be very helpful later for all the work that takes place in Sheikhatri that will all soon be published. Here you see on the left side Martin Zieger taking GPS reference points and also measuring rock stability. In the middle, you see the packing and registering with Dr. Andrea Loprieno and Rachel and Mahmoud packing away the rock samples that we were allowed to take last season. They have been sent to a colleague of Rachel's and Martin's, Hossam Abdelmoumen from Canada University. He has started to process them, and he will finish the processing of these samples in this summer. So we will have all the results by this summer. So it's a work going on pretty fast. And then you see how Rachel and Martin do analysis of construction damages. Again, a photo of TT95. We go back again to the 3D scanning applied on different materials. That was a test that we did this year. We wanted to know where is 3D modeling and scanning applicable? Where does it give us better results than pure photographic work and pure doing drawings? So we did one pottery bowl, and it really very nicely shows. I mean, it can handle it from all sides, so it will be a very good addition to the regular pottery documentation and recording. And we also tried to do a 3D model of a scroll that we found in the huge Substructure 95 series. And on the photo below you see one of our members of this is Martin Baumann carrying out the hand scanning of a torso, the running torso. A big issue in our research is the investigation of the materiality of tomb building procedures, especially tool marks left behind by the stone cutters. So on the left picture you see excisions that have been produced by leveling out huge blocks. They break them out, they lever them out of the bedrock whenever they can do that, especially when they are confronted with hard rock. They have to go on doing this that way. And to the right side you see a high-resolution photo of chisel marks left on the inner side of the doorway, of the second doorway in TT84. So we are also, a member of our mission will be and has been a stonemason from Basel who worked his whole life in the Basel Cathedral, and he knows a lot about traces of stonemasonry, and he's able to tell if these traces have been produced by one person or by two. He could also tell if this person was right-handed or left-handed. So we all get these details as we are interested also in the people behind these constructions, the people who built these things. Then photogrammetry is a big issue also now in modern archaeology and ethnographic work. So it will be very helpful for any kind of investigations in wall paintings or tomb decoration. You see that you get a view of a wall that you never get when you enter the tomb. This is the whole north wall of the corridor TT84, which is very narrow. So when you enter, you can just walk along the wall like this, but you are never able to see it stretch out like this. So and this helps us to study the layout of the wall paintings. It's very helpful because it's according to scale, it's rectified. Very helpful also for measuring, again, geological structures, and again also to study the tomb construction. The then one example of high-resolution photos, a procedure that we have started this season, that Klaus Bobrowski, he built kind of a tripod, a special tripod, a special technique thing to put the camera on top so that it's really without any trembling and shaking, and that you can go on and take in photographs according to the same distance to the wall. And so you will see an example of and actually how paintings were executed by the artist who was responsible for painting this pillar, for example. So you see the M, is here, I wrote this M in this pillar inscriptions, and then the way they were done. You see the traces of the preliminary red, the faint red lines of the preliminary drawings. You see how he filled in the color, that he was not very careful filling in the color in that one, and then also how the contour lines was done. So this will also help all those being interested in the materiality of your painting and painting techniques to go on with their study. Sometimes photography can even be also kind of challenging. Here Matthias is taking a photo from the top of the facade in K453, and then also a very risky enterprise, Klaus, in the Courtyard 95. And finally, also, I also would like to mention this, that now since this year, we have started to work to process and to insert all the data that we produce and also the former data that we produced in the project before into a database. And it's an integrative database system, that software that has been developed by a research center in Austria, and it's particularly developed for archaeological fieldwork and for museum archives. And we find it very useful. We have tested it since February we started. So Noemi Villas is one of our IT specialists, and another colleague of us who will come next fall, because he was here for a short time. He stayed at home to take care of the database in Basel. And Noemi managed really to also interconnect us in the field, not only in the guest house, in the excavation house, but also in the field. So we are able to fill in, to insert data in the field, which can be very helpful. We have even access to the computer, the internet, interconnection in remote places, like here at the far end of 1995, and here but the photo is not very good to show you our work. Yeah, and that's it. I would like also to thank you all, also in the name of all the members of the mission, again for having us here and for giving us the opportunity to work in Sheikhatri. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for all the information we got, and I think that we got a lot. Just in an hour, we have a lot of information about the 95 84, and I think that we need to have a tour, to take all of our colleagues and visit you and see